Thank you for joining us today for our first ever online IALD Association update and annual meeting for members. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for being members of the IALD, whether it has been a year or 50 years. We appreciate you taking time out of your day or night to spend with us. Hello, I'm Leonard, President of the IALD. And today I'm joined by David Ghatan, our immediate past president, Ron Kurtz, our treasurer, and our CEO, Marsha Turner. For our annual meeting, we are going to talk about the IALD before the COVID-19 crash, its financial impact, what IALD is doing for our members, and the challenges and opportunities for the future. So let me start off with a question for David. Can you tell us, David, about what the IALD was working on before the COVID-19 crash?
Yes, thank you, Douglas, for the question, and happy to join everyone today. You'll all remember that last year at this time, the IALD was celebrating its 50th anniversary, which we culminated with a Golden Jubilee blowout extravaganza at our Albuquerque Enlighten Americas conference. And it was really wonderful to reflect on and celebrate what began as a small group of like-minded colleagues and has grown to a truly global association with 1,500 members in over 60 countries with 30 very active regions and chapters. Last year, the IALD Board of Directors came together and decided, how do we plan for the next 50 years of the IALD? And over a strategic planning session that was an intensive multiple days and then follow-up meetings, we really chose to articulate and form our core values. I like to say kind of restate our core values, because for me, these have been what the IALD has always been about. We're just properly articulating them now. And those are community, collaboration, innovation, integrity, and leadership. These values really frame how the IALD connects internally and externally, and how we do our work internally with member engagement and community, and externally as we begin to raise the profile of the profession. And that's really what our long-term goals are: raising the profile of the profession and ensuring that member engagement is strong and active.
Okay, thank you. I understand that on doing that, we need resources. So talking about that, Ron, can you tell us how did the COVID-19 crash affected the IALD financially?
Thank you for the question, Douglas, and greetings to everyone. Unfortunately, the impact to IALD's finances for this year has been considerable. For some time, the IALD's revenue has been unbalanced, with our most significant revenue source being light fare. This imbalance had some risk and certainly was not desirable. The board of directors had substantive discussion on expanding revenue sources and adding some new ones at the aforementioned session last year. Unfortunately, the impact of the pandemic hit before any meaningful action could actually take place. Like many other trade shows and conferences around the world, light fare had to be canceled. The IALD suffered both the loss of revenue and had to cover our share of the expenses for an event that never took place. Now, many of you are aware that the IALD is one of 3 partners in the ownership of light fare, along with the Illuminating Engineering Society and the International Marketing Centers. What you may not be aware of is that the light fare revenue accounts for approximately 75% of the IALD revenue. This show has been incredibly successful over the last decade, and this revenue has provided us with opportunity to offset many of the costs of our programs, our activities, and services to the benefit of you, our members. This kept our dues low and the price of our programs low as well. But not only did we lose light fare, but we lost both Enlighten Europe and the Enlighten Americas conferences last year. along with some other in-person activities. The bottom line impact of all of this is an 80% reduction in the anticipated revenue for this year.
And how is the IALD managing this reduction in its revenue?
Yeah, well, just as stated, with the anticipated revenue being down 80%, it's quite the challenge. With Light Fair just weeks away when it was canceled, the IALD staff had to adjust quickly to manage the expenses for the remainder of the year. And to their credit, there was a reduction of expenses of over 35%. The success of Light Fair over the years did afford the IALD to put aside revenue gained from the show to build strong reserves for a time of need. And we're better off than many other associations and societies that did not have the same foresight. But we are certainly now in that time of need, and we're tapping into those reserves to help cover costs for this year. There is no doubt that this is an unprecedented time and one of great uncertainty. The board is actively planning for 2021, reviewing what will best serve the IALD and help meet our long-term goals and objectives. We'll continue to prioritize the expansion of revenue sources and reinvest in the evolution and success of Light Fair. But right now, we're uncertain of what our revenue will look like in the future. So we're just going to have to be cautious and assume that in the short term, we will have much less revenue with which to work.
Thank you, Ron. Marsha, how did this affect the IALD? How the IALD has changed after the COVID-19?
Well, when we saw the pandemic tsunami coming, we knew we'd have some big decisions to make and some major changes to embrace. And just like all of you, we made a very quick pivot and the office moved to all virtual. It has been a bit of an adjustment. And when we looked at the major revenue shift, we knew we would need to do a rapid rethink of all of our programs, services, and activities. So we reduced expenses across the board, as Ron just told you. We put a hold on large expenditures. Travel and in-person meetings had to be canceled, and all those meetings went into a virtual environment. We found new operational efficiencies, and part of that was we cut staff salaries. So we looked at everything that was planned for the year. We determined what could move forward as planned, what might need to go away, and what could be adapted, and what new things we might do. And we continue to adapt and change as we go into 2021.
It sounds a lot of work and challenging decisions. But I know that this thing of going virtual has given the IALD some opportunities to do things differently. Why don't you tell us about it?
So we've been fortunate to have those core values and goals and objectives that were set by the board at the strategy session. And that provides an anchor point for us in terms of what we do and how we do it. The first thing we did was we went out and surveyed our members to find out what was going on with them, what was happening with their businesses, the challenges they've been facing. And we use that information to craft changes or new programs and services. We launched a series of webinars. We've delivered 30 over the past 7 months to provide resources for our members or to help them connect about topics that were very meaningful or useful to them. We've created a COVID-19 resources page on the website, looking at what different governments are doing in terms of resources for their constituents, and putting all the information in one place so that our members had access to it. We adapted the IALD International Lighting Design Awards for successful online delivery. And I'm pleased that we had more people attending virtually than we've ever had attending in person. And we've been leveraging our region and chapter network quite heavily. Most of our members find community and connection locally with the IALD, and our coordinators of the regions and chapters have done a marvelous job in organizing their own virtual activities to stay connected with the constituency there. Operating virtually, I think, in the end, the last thing I'd say about that is it has given us some unique opportunities to expand our reach and extend our influence. So it has been, I won't say it's been a blessing in disguise, but it has been a unique opportunity that we might not have leveraged quite this heavily pre-pandemic.
Thank you. And do you think, David, how do you think that will the IALD continue to grow globally and retain our strong community in this new context?
Well, I think I will continue kind of what Marsha was saying, that much of the success of IALD historically and until now has been through our region and chapter network. That network really is the epitome of our community, and as I like to call it, the lighting family. These opportunities for us to come together in our local community, share common topics that may be specific to where we are, but feel a part of a true global association with global reach. And we've talked in the past, and it continues to be an underlying message for the IALD, this global sense, this global reach and local connection. And that's really important in the way that we look at it. It's also, our regions and chapters allow for direct, right now virtually, but hopefully soon, direct face-to-face. It's also likely that through that local community in smaller numbers is where we'll first see our in-person events come back in a socially distant and socially responsible manner, but that in controllable numbers as we see an eventual end to the current pandemic. That's not to say it should take away from our broader international get-togethers, but it will happen at a local level. I think the creativity that we see of our chapter coordinators is amazing. They come up with new and unique ways to find connection and meeting locally, and these are the future leaders. That in only a number of years, it will be those chapter coordinators instead of the three of us on this call, and really seeing how they're looking forward with the association.
During the pandemic, 2020 has also been a time of social unrest. We have seen grave injustices surrounding Black lives, and we all care deeply about this matter as it represents a basic human right to truly be treated equally and fairly. Ron, I understand this issue is quite personal to you and your family, so I would like to ask you, what are the IALD's plans for diversity and inclusion?
Thank you for the question, Douglas. Yes, my spouse teaches in a local public school, primarily made up of minorities. Certainly we have seen, in getting to know them both from a school standpoint and a personal standpoint, that the access to curricula such as architecture or other design-based classes that might be available in more affluent schools is not necessarily as available in these schools. So what I see as the issue here is more of a grassroots effort. The IALD will focus on some areas globally, but I think it's up to us individually and in our local regions and chapters to reach out to these schools. From the IALD's perspective, though, we're going to focus on two areas globally. First, resources to help businesses to become more diverse and inclusive. And second, to address pipeline issues by working through our local framework to reach Black and minority students earlier in the education cycle. Additionally, individuals or practices can reach out to local schools and support groups to see what action they may be able to take or help with. Several regions and chapters have already developed some initial surveys and have reached out to local mentoring groups to see how they could be part of a path forward. But while the IALD cannot commit to a global scale program right now due to the current economics, we can work on this and it can be done locally. And I urge you to all reach out.
Excellent, thank you. And due to the current situation you mentioned, but what do you think, Marsha? When do you think the IALD will be back to normal?
Good question, Douglas. I don't think there's any going back. I think there's going on, there's going through, and there's establishing a new normal. For the moment, we are all virtual, but all virtual will not be our reality forever. For the moment, our reality is reduced revenue, and that is certainly a current and near future reality. But I think IALD has always been that pivot point for members in terms of community and connection, and I don't see that changing. As has been stated by several people today, our region and chapter network is our strength. I think that gives us the opportunity to stay connected and engaged with IALD members and more broadly the community. And we have our core values and our strategic objectives to sustain us. And we'll be focusing on how to achieve our goals by thinking and doing differently, how we might need to adapt and innovate in order to be responsive to member needs. And we will continue to provide value and look for ways to grow.
Well, it's in scenarios like this where there are many unknowns and many obstacles, finding answers is not simple. And fortunately, as David remembered, we have our core values, and those core values are our center. That is how we frame our decisions. So our core values are community, collaboration, innovation, integrity, and leadership. So we will focus on what we know, a few likely scenarios, and looked to opportunities. I am very optimistic about the future. We can be an organization that is resilient, nimble, and ready for an unknown future. I know this based on what we have done already and what we are able to do. We have seen that we can create an organization which can grow and flourish. And I can paraphrase what past President Victor Palacio has said. Instead of chasing butterflies one by one, the IALD has built a beautiful garden where we can all congregate. As more designers join us, the community grows deeper roots and flourishes. And with any garden, we need to continually nurture it as it grows. We are now embarking on Butterfly Garden 2.0. Our butterfly garden needs more gardeners now. We need our members and friends to all come together, roll up our sleeves, and actively participate. We know that much of our success in creating our garden is due to the growth of the IALD regions and chapters. We have been repeating this through all this update. And the future of the IALD will be based off our local networks. This growth has happened organically through grassroots efforts in local communities all over the world. Our regions and chapters give our members and friends a way to connect with each other while being part of a greater global community of people who share the same passion for light and lighting design. The future will be more grassroots, members working locally to help build a strong global organization for the future. To make this work, we need our members to raise their hands and volunteer. So I will ask the three of you about this. Can you share with our membership, how can you help support the IALD? And let's start with Ron.
Well, I think you just hit upon it, Douglas. Get involved with your local IALD region or chapter. Participate in developing programs and activities with that local chapter. Invite your colleagues and those you work with. And Douglas just mentioned that this was a butterfly garden. Let's not limit it to butterflies. Let's bring in some birds and some bees. So from affiliated groups or professionals who are interested in the built environment, local students, or even the clients even your clients to participate. Reach out to your local region or chapter coordinator and ask to help. Get non-members excited about joining the IALD. Discuss with them the benefits of being involved with a group of like-minded individuals that is unique, even among other professional societies related to architecture.
Thank you, Ron. That was inspiring. What about you? What are your thoughts, Marsha?
Well, I'll just echo what Ron just said about getting involved. Get involved at your local region and chapter level. It really truly is our anchor point for connection and community. You know, be an active participant. Welcome a new member. Introduce yourself to someone you've never met before, even if it's virtually. Talk to an emerging professional. Mentor someone that is interested in lighting design. For IALD more specifically, well, you know, respond to the call for speakers for these conferences. We have Enlighten Americas, we have Enlighten Europe, and we have Enlighten Asia. Participate in the conferences. Thank you for coming to this one. We very much appreciate it. Respond to our surveys. It is very, very important that we hear your voice. IALD makes decisions based on the information and the feedback that you provide in those surveys. Vote in the IALD election. There's one ongoing right now. Please thank your LIRC members. They help support our conferences and all of our activities, and their support is fundamental and very important to the IALD. And in particular, they have supported this conference and they have supported the emerging program. Please pay your dues.
Thank you, Marsha. And what about you, David? What would be your recommendations to help support the IALD?
Well, Marsha and Ron both had excellent answers and covered almost everything I would possibly say. What I would add is participate in and support LightFair. We've mentioned and reminded everyone that IALD is a partner in LightFair, along with the Illuminating Engineering Society, the IES, and with the International Market Centers. This partnership and the revenues from this partnership have traditionally represented at 75% or more of IALD's revenue. It has allowed us to grow into the association that we are in the activities that we've had, the ability to offset the costs of conferences and membership. It's important to remember LightFair is our show. It is a show for lighting designers, by lighting designers, with this emphasis on design. The partnership, including the management committee, with which yourself, Douglas, and Ron are active participants on, have really put focus on reaffirming and putting the spotlight on design at the show. So what you may have thought of LightFair a few years ago is very, very different as the show is evolving. So I would encourage everyone to be in New York next year in May. Hopefully conditions allow us to do that. It was intentional, this move to New York as the East Coast show, to align with New York Design Week and be part of a broader discussion about design and really put our sort of flag and into the ground of design with a big capital D. So I would for me, that is an important part of your IALD identity and something that you can do today.
Thank you, David, for bringing this up for every one of us, for remembering this. Thank you all, Marsha and Ron, for your suggestions too. And basically, this is a call to participation and a call to support. And because this is a critical moment in the IALD's existence, we cannot move back to where we were before. We need to move forward to a new future. The IALD will continue to support its core values: community, collaboration, innovation, integrity, and leadership. This is our association, and we are only as strong as we choose to be. And today, I invite you to get involved in your local community, to volunteer, to help reach out and connect with others, and to invite new people into our community. And let's grow our community. We have come to the end of our time. In summary, the IALD has a strong community. We have less revenue, and we'll need to approach our work differently and be creative. And we need your help to support local initiatives. I'd like to thank you, David, Ron, and Marsha for your support. And thanks to all of our members and the greater lighting community for joining us today. If you have further questions, please email me. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night.